The world is in search of renewable energy sources, especially for developing economies like Nigeria. Therefore, the need for effective energy storage solutions is becoming increasingly paramount for many Nigerians. With the current power situation in the country, with just a few areas experiencing 24 hours of power supply, what's the common man to do? But still, what can we do to ensure efficient and renewable energy supply? I guess the man with the answers today is Damola Omole, Director of Scalable Solutions at the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, focusing on indispensable role of battery energy storage systems in advancing the energy transition. Damola, welcome to the world today.
Thank you for having me.
And it's great to have you here. How about you beginning with explaining to Nigerians what BESS, which is the battery energy storage systems, what it's all about?
Thank you for having me. I think as you mentioned at the top of the intro, renewable energy systems are really the future. They're required for a just energy transition. Battery energy storage systems feature in that equation by enabling renewable energy sources like solar and wind to come online. So to put it simply, the sun shines maybe 12 hours a day and the wind blows unpredictably. Therefore, you need some sort of technology that allows you to provide energy when the sun is not shining and when the wind is not blowing. That's where storage systems come into play. And battery energy storage systems, or BESS, is one of those.
So how does BESS work? How do we transmit that energy from the sun and from the wind into homes and industries?
Great. So similar to the batteries we have in our remote controls or in our cell phones, where we charge our phones either overnight and then use it for an extended period of the day. And as many Nigerians know, if you're not near a power source towards the end of the day, you're scrambling around looking for to recharge your phone. It's the same thing with battery energy storage systems. We're now just thinking at the utility scale, on the order of 10 and 100 megawatts, which is several times more than what you have in your phone. So it works by the technology. Battery energy storage systems work by storing energy when the sun is out, and you're using essentially the free resource from the sun. You can use it to power our everyday lives during the day, and then use the excess to charge the batteries, so that at night when the sun is not shining, you then draw from that battery, similar to using your cell phone off charge.
Yeah, I'm wondering how this would work, because we are entering the rainy season when provision of sunlight will be limited in many parts of the country. How would it still work?
So yes, but I think there's probably a bit of apprehension about solar that you've just described. So technically, solar doesn't need the sun to be fully out. As long as there is light, the solar will work. But yes, it doesn't produce as much energy as when the sun is bright and shiny. At the utility scale, you have a combination of resources that you're combining, which is why it's usually important to have a mix, diversity of resources in your energy generation mix. So you have the sun, you have the wind, you have hydro, and then you have traditional sources like your gas power generator and others that come together to form the energy provision or the power we see in our homes. So as we're entering the rainy season, the solar will still work. It will generate energy. It will store it in batteries that you can then dispatch later. It's just a question of how much solar do you have installed and how much energy do you need.
I know many Nigerians are very interested in this because power generation or power distribution has been very low since the beginning of this year. And we don't even know we can't predict the days ahead. So people want to know how they can, bring this into their homes. I mean, is this a special system that works? Is it installable? How is it installed and all of that?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question because what we've seen over the last 10 to 15 years in both variable renewable sources like solar and wind is a dramatic decrease in costs. Specifically in solar, over the last decade, we saw a 90% reduction in costs. That same effect we're now seeing in battery energy storage systems. Now, we can think of battery energy storage systems on two scales. You have what you might call utility scale, which, as I mentioned earlier, is on the order of tens of megawatts. And then you have smaller battery systems that come with your inverter at homes, which, for all intents and purposes, are what we call distributed renewable energy sources. And along those two, essentially, technology options, GEAPP, or the Global Energy Alliance, is putting in quite a lot of effort, along with partners, to ensure the widespread adoption of this technology, because they are the key to essentially unlocking these renewables we're talking about.
It sounds like you're saying, we should be alternative to our normal power supply, which is those of us who are connected to the grid, waiting on power distribution from the national grid, is inverters and these battery powered systems. That's what you're saying, because it's renewable energy and because it is sustainable, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's a bit of a paradox, because in Nigeria, we're actually ahead of the curve. Not by choice, I might say. The world is moving to a distributed utility system, right? So the traditional large central generating stations distributing power over, hundreds and thousands of kilometers, which was what we've seen over the last 100 years, has started to evolve by hook or by crook, because we didn't get it right in Nigeria, which is why we have such high occurrence of load shedding, as you described, is that we have the opportunity to essentially leapfrog that technology, which the rest of the world is moving to. So in an ideal world, or maybe in a near future world, because that transition is already here, it's already happening, most homes should be powered by nearby distributed renewable energy, because, one, it's cheaper than the traditional grid I've just described.
But the batteries are expensive.
But as I mentioned, the cost is coming down. And what we are looking to do, again, along with partners, is how can we accelerate that cost reduction in batteries? We're already seeing it cost competitive with unsubsidized coal, with even gas generation. So people again have the impression that it's expensive, but that was 10 years ago. Battery costs are significantly coming down now.
Really?
It is indeed. It is indeed. And part of what we want to, part of the effort is to make sure we're getting this message out and we're demonstrating it with proof points. So the International Energy Agency, the IEA, just released a report on batteries a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of these numbers are on there. Of course, I know not everyone is going to read an IEA report, but it does show that the trend is downward and it's going to continue accelerating, mainly because in order to meet our 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, provide access to electricity for largely 600 million people, mostly Africans, that don't have access to energy, we're going to have to double the rate at which we're producing batteries. So if you think of all the batteries that have been produced, we now need to double that rate to be able to meet the goals. So that creates a huge opportunity for everyone, really, both along the value chain. both the manufacturers, but then the end users. So the cost of batteries is coming down. I think that's a key message. Yeah.
Yeah, but how do we help the climate? You know, when these batteries die out eventually, how do we dispose of them in a safe way so that they don't affect, you know, our climate and, you know, impact on us in the end?
Another excellent point, because in the past, we failed to pay attention to the long-term effects of new technology and technology adoption. I think one of the positives around this energy transition is there is a lot of attention being focused on that. So you hear a lot of things about the circular economy, about second life of batteries. Essentially, how do we mitigate? We plan for it, right? So from the very start, as we're initiating projects, we have to be thinking about how do you decommission it in a safe manner? How do you recycle it in a safe manner? Some of that technology exists today, but as we know with technology, by the time you're getting to the end of the life of the battery, there would have been many cycles of innovation. But the important thing is, at the starting point, you're having it at the forefront and making sure you're planning it into the ecosystem of what you're doing.
That is really important, isn't it? Because we can't be talking about renewable energy, and in the end, we're now talking about increased climate activity and, you know, Africa being the dumping ground of most of these technologies. We don't want that to happen.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Damola,
Thank you
for joining us on the program today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.